Ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots and freedom-loving Americans, welcome back to another episode of The Source, Rule Breakers, Lawmakers, and Influence. This is The Source, where rules get broken for the greater good, laws get made to serve the people, and influence drives us forward. Today we're joined by Tom Emmer, the Majority Whip in the U.S. House of Representatives. Welcome, Tom.
Great to be with you, Will.
Good to see you. It's been a few months. You look good.
It has. Well, so do you, sir.
Thank you.
So do you.
So, I'm sure it's top of mind for everybody right now, the shutdown. And really, it's a fundamental difference of opinion in how the country is going to survive going forward. And some of the things that we're seeing is that the Democrats are, again, trying to put in these radical spending policies of money that just go into, mysterious buckets for silly purposes. And more importantly, trying to claw back a lot of the spending cuts that were included in the big, beautiful bill. So do you want to give us a rundown of where we stand today and what the negotiation points are?
Yeah. So first off, let's give it a umbrella-like context. My grandfather's Democrat Party is dead. This is now the communist Marxist party. In fact, Will, I would argue that if you're a socialist, you're a moderate in the new Marxist, communist Marxist party of America. I mean, Mamdani the commie in New York City will likely get elected next week. He is the de facto head of this new party. You got Bernie Sanders et al. This is who a very small group of Democrat senators, including their failing senior leader, Chuck Schumer, this is who they're kowtowing to, Will. House Republicans, so everybody that listens to your great show understands, we did our work. We passed a full funding bill back on September 19th, well in advance of the September 30th midnight funding deadline. You only need a simple majority in the House. We did that. We had all Republican votes except one Democrat. All the other Democrats voted no. And what does that mean? They voted not to pay our troops after September 30th. They voted not to pay air traffic controllers. They voted not to fund SNAP benefits for 42 million low-income people across the country. They paid not to support the WIC program that provides nutrition assistance to women, infants, and children. I mean, they voted no on all this. We voted yes. We sent it over to the Senate. The difference between the House and the Senate, even though Chuck Schumer lied openly, I would love to use the word disingenuous, but he has just been telling bald-faced lies. He made a statement last week that Republicans have the White House, they have the Senate, they have the House. This is their shutdown. Hey, Chuck, you've been here for decades. You know better than anyone that unlike the House, where it's a simple majority, it takes 60 senators to get something to the floor in the Senate, which means we have 53 Republicans, Will. We need at least 7 Democrats. And literally, he and his colleagues have refused to provide those votes. I guess they're not voting today. They voted 14 times so far. And just so your viewers and listeners understand, Chuck Schumer wrote this CR. This is the same CR that he voted for, he and his colleagues voted for 6 months ago in March. And they voted for it 13 times under the Biden administration. They wrote it, but now they won't vote for it. Why is that? Well, one, they hate Donald Trump. Anything Donald Trump does, they want to oppose. They didn't learn anything from the election last November. Americans are sick and tired of this. But they also gave us a window into who they really are once again. And that's what you're talking about, the spending. I don't know who the genius was that decided to file a written alternative plan in the Senate. But that written alternative plan, a couple of things. It literally requires seeks 1.5 trillion in increased spending. It would put illegals back on taxpayer-funded health care, and it would gut the $50 billion rural health care fund that Republicans created last July with President Trump. And look, their argument, We're doing this because of these enhanced premium tax credits that were for Obamacare that were created under the pandemic, which were unique circumstances, and they weren't intended to go forever. They were going to expire at the end of this year. But now all of a sudden, this is their issue. Is it really their issue? Well, if people will go read that alternative bill, it's a little over 60 pages. Do you know that only 1.5 pages of that alternative bill have to do with the enhanced premium tax credits? In fact, the bill would fund Sesame Street in Iraq. It would fund LGBTQ programs all around the globe. And there's a whole bunch of other things. And then what I said already, they want to put illegals back on taxpayer-funded healthcare, and they want to destroy the fund for rural healthcare. This ain't about healthcare, Will. This is all about appeasing their radical pro-terrorist. Remember, a third of my grandfather's Democrat Party now supports terrorists like Hamas over the people of Israel. So that's their goal. I think it's if it doesn't end next week, I don't know when it's going to end, Will.
It's really sad, this flippening of the Democratic Party, just like you said, growing up, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. The Democrat Party represented the working man. The Democrat Party was there to advocate for their rights, to make sure that there were opportunities to put food on the table, all of those issues. And we're not seeing that from this Democrat Party. And the fact that they're willing to inflict so much pain on the people who do the actual work in the infrastructure of our country in exchange for this political football game that they're playing to fund issues or fund programs around the globe when we are $38 trillion in debt. And everybody keeps saying, how the debt keeps mounting and mounting and mounting. The Big Beautiful Bill did some great things in creating permanency in the tax code and creating permanency in spending. And it just feels like that they don't really care, with Christmas just around the corner, with Thanksgiving just around the corner, that they want to make this as painful as possible for the American people.
Well, they are. I mean, now it's 30 days since this thing began. I would argue, Will, that most Americans up until this week have not noticed because they have not been impacted by this. Thanks to our great president, Donald J. Trump, who managed to find a way to pay our troops last month. That pain was delayed. But now we've arrived at a time when on Tuesday of this week, air traffic controllers did not get paid for their last 30 days. Today, more federal workers will not get paid for working. Tomorrow, military servicemen and women will not get paid. Saturday, you're going to have an interruption in SNAP benefits and WIC benefits again. It will directly impact 42 million low-income Americans. And for what? For what? So they can put this pretend wish list out there for $1.5 trillion and more spending. And the disgusting part, Will, is they don't care about the Americans that they're serving. Chuck Schumer last week or the week before said, this shutdown gets better for us every day it goes on. As we all ask, Chuck, who's us? It ain't helping the American people.
The senators who don't have to worry about paychecks, the senators who have their own health care plan, the senators who have, multiple houses. Yeah, it doesn't affect them at all.
Not at all. Not at all. And by the way, then you have Chris Coons in the Senate, who likes to fire his mouth off whenever he sees a microphone. And he made the mistake of saying the quiet thing out loud. He said, well, yeah, we're going to cause pain, but that's how we get leverage. And this is exactly what the minority whip in the House, Catherine Clark from Massachusetts, echoed. She said the same thing. Yes, we understand families are going to suffer, people are going to suffer, but this is how we get our leverage. Again, this is disgusting, Will, and you got to ask yourself, leverage for what? Yeah. The American people voted for Donald J. Trump last November. He won every single, it's like 77 million votes. And these guys, they refuse to listen to the American people because they don't respect the American people. And I'm going to tell you, it's very clear they don't care about the American people.
Well, when you look at the statistic, the average American has less than $500 in the bank, right? They can't afford emergencies when they happen in their lives. To go without a 30-day paycheck, let alone we're probably going to creep up into a 60 days. For those working class Americans to go for 60 days without receiving a paycheck, excuse me, will be financially devastating to them. And the fact that people who we elected, and I think that's what a lot of people, or maybe certain elected representatives forget, is even though you're elected to represent your district or your state, you still have an obligation to the rest of the country and what the rest of the country's will was in electing the majorities in the House, the Senate, and putting President Trump in the White House.
That's exactly right. These guys, they think they're putting up a fight for who? I mean, a very small group of people, but a very virulent, I would argue, violent. I mean, they were marching on the mall a Saturday ago, a week and a half ago, with signs advocating for the assassination of our president, and nobody walking with them, including senators, Democrat senators, seem to care, Will. That's who they are kowtowing to. And now you have Mamdani the commie that's going to get elected in New York City, most likely next Tuesday. He has become the de facto head of the new Communist Marxist Party of America that was my grandfather's Democrat Party. This is who they are deathly afraid of, whether it's Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, who's just turned into a cartoon character in the House. They are deathly afraid, as are their members, of that small but very wildly vocal, radical, and extreme, almost violent group. And that's why they're keeping the government shut down.
Yeah, and they're out there with the rhetoric of tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. I mean, Kathy Hochul has done so much to cripple the economy of New York, especially New York City. I was talking to my nephew who lives in Jersey City yesterday. He was saying that Uber drivers will refuse to take you into New York City because of the congestion tax, the surcharges on the bridges and the tunnels, and it just doesn't make financial economic sense for those people. And when you try to, and we had a guest on a few weeks ago who talked about when Biden did the 87,000 IRS agents. Well, we're going to go after the rich. Well, they didn't. They went after small business owners, and they went after middle-income Americans because those are the easy shots. They can't afford the lawyers. They can't afford the accountants to protect and defend themselves. And so when you look at what's happening in New York with Mamdani and AOC and Bernie screaming, tax the rich, well, it's such a small bucket in percentage terms, in population terms, compared to the rest of the country. What's going to happen, and we're seeing it here in South Florida, New York is moving here. They are not going to stand for these excessive tax policies in these states. And because of that, the social agendas are going to fail.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just struck a chord when you were talking about New York. It may be a little direct, but I hope people recognize that the governor of New York, she's very underwhelming. Her academic ability is questionable. In fact, some might wonder if she thinks moron is one or two words. It's crazy what's going on. You brought up, they always mask their love for America with lies. Lies like we're going to go after the rich. But as you point out, they don't go after the rich. They go after Main Street small businesses. And I'm going to add, it's not just because they're going after the low-hanging fruit, as you describe it, or the easy marks. There are supporters, Will. They are Republicans. They believe in the entrepreneurial spirit, the cowboy spirit of this country. They want to create a better life for themselves and others. And you talked about it earlier. It used to be, because I had a grandfather who was a proud Democrat when I came home from college as a Reagan Republican. We used to debate the issues of the day, and the debate was about the size and scope of government versus the right of an individual to self-determine and where that line falls. Guess what? We're not arguing about that anymore with these communists and these Marxists. They believe that government is the sole authority and the only authority. And by the way, they're the ones that want to run it because they want to tell people like you and me and those of us that want to be free, they want to tell us what we're allowed to do, who we're allowed to do it with, how much we can have. how we can use it. I mean, think about this Mamdani creep. He wants to take private property in New York and essentially take it over. Oh, you can still own it, but he's going to tell you who has to live in it, what you have to do to maintain it, how you're supposed to support people who aren't interested or have no incentive in supporting themselves. This model has never worked anywhere around the world. And literally what is happening, I listened to Claudia Tenney, a great representative from New York today, talk about the fact that this is our enemies. This is Soros money from outside this country and others who do not love America. They hate America, and they are using people like Mamdani, the commie, and they're funneling dark money in to try and undermine the great constitutional republic that our founders left us. And I'll tell you what, Donald J. Trump, that is why the good Lord has set us Donald J. Trump, is to protect the constitutional republic. And he's showing everybody how you do it. And I think it's just a matter of time before the voters in New York City even, or California with that greasy Newsom guy that they got, they're just going to wake up slowly. And when they do, they're going to go, you know what? I'd like to be safe in my own community. I'd like to keep more of my hard-earned money. I'd like to climb the mountain of prosperity, just like you so-called Marxists and communists are going to do with my money, right?
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. And, you're seeing that, California is basically the template from Europe, right? Where they really don't look at citizens as having rights. And I
Eastern.
Eastern Europe, and I think what's also happening is, and President Trump has been doing this very effectively, where they've been trying to block him in the courts. He gets up to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court sides on the side of rule of law, right? That creates the precedent so that it can't be done again in the future. And a lot of the policies that Mamdani is advocating for go directly against our Constitution, against private property rights, against the rights of the citizens of and the Americans. And what people need to realize is that he can try and put forth these policies, but they can be challenged in court, and they're unconstitutional to begin with. So, this is a very critical race that people need to take the time to educate themselves as to what the impact of those policies are. Because
but you got to do more to challenge, because even again, going back to the current sitting New York governor and her consumption tax, that violates the right to travel clause within the Constitution, because you are restricting people from being able to travel. This has been a decision of the Supreme Court for years. You can't do that, and yet nobody's challenging it. Nobody's fighting.
Well,
Donald Trump does.
And that's subtext of the Green New Scam, right? They wanted to concentrate people into cities. They wanted to put them into electric vehicles. They wanted to have certain controls that can say where you can go and when you can't go. And the consumption tax is just an economic barrier or handcuff to keep you from moving in certain places in your own city.
Exactly. And unconstitutional on its face, but it hasn't been determined yet.
So, we had talked earlier about Obamacare and their holdout in terms of what they're looking for, in this deadlock. But you had said earlier, that's not something that even expires until the end of the year. It's not something that needs to be tackled right now. You want to talk a little bit about the flaws of not necessarily Obamacare, but maybe so people understand the financial aspect of the premiums, the temporary relief that was granted during COVID that was meant to be temporary, and what's really going to happen to rates, whether something gets settled in the Senate or not.
Well, by the way, these subsidies go directly to insurance companies. So the argument that these subsidies are responsible for causing the premiums to go up, that's controlled by the people that are getting the subsidies. And by the way, the enhanced subsidies, what they did is they took the income caps off. So let's say a couple's earning $600,000. That couple can get this enhanced insurance subsidy to reduce their insurance costs. I don't think anyone Even Democrats who originally created that failed program intended for that. The other thing they did, and this what distorts the marketplace, and this is what communists and Marxists do. They don't believe in the free market. Mm-hmm. What they did with those enhanced premium tax credits is they made some of the lower levels completely funded by government. There's no individual involvement. Why is that important? Because now there's no incentive for the insurer to keep the cost of the policy down. Mm-hmm. They can charge whatever, because guess what? The federal government, AKA the taxpayer, you and me, we're going to be paying the insurance company for that coverage. It's completely distorted the marketplace. We've got doctors here that have alternative ideas on how to fix it. There was an idea to fix it a few years ago. Its time has come. But what I'd rather talk about is the politics. It's the politics that have us shut down. Think about this, Will. I told you most people hadn't felt it or noticed it until this week. Well, this week, starting at the beginning of the week, there was a letter from the largest federal employee union in the country. The American Federation of Government Employees represents 820,000 out of 1.4 million federal workers. They sent a letter earlier this week. It didn't say Republican good, Democrat bad. All it said in very bland terms, pass the clean CR, open the government. I'm going to argue to you, and this is the conspiracy theorist in me, this was requested by somebody on the other side because they need an exit strategy. Why do I say that? Because I listened to senators like Mark Warner and Tim Kaine from the state of Virginia that has the most federal employees in the country, and they're not too hot about it. They're not too cold about it. They're just kind of treading water, coming up with excuses. Why would they do that? Because they've got a problem on the other side. This virulent, cancerous Marxist base that is controlling their party now, literally, they've got elections in Virginia, in New Jersey. This is all coming next Tuesday, right? If they end the shutdown today, they risk that virulent group staying away from the polls and going after Democrats, okay? If they keep it shut down through Tuesday, through the election, then they're able to say, look, we have no choice now. We have to reopen the government. Besides, you saw how hard we fought because we just kept the government shut down for a record period of time. No one has fought this hard and this long as we have. And we need to get the government working again so we can fight the Republicans who have caused you all this pain. And then they'll have the left-wing media out there echoing that lie, saying, oh, yeah, it was Republicans, when everybody knows all you got to do is look at it. It was Chuck Schumer and a handful of Democrats in the Senate. I think that's what they're doing. If I'm wrong, we're in for a lot longer shutdown.
Well, Tom, I know you're really busy today. I really appreciate you coming on, and it was great to talk to you. And you know, keep fighting for us. We appreciate everything that you're doing there in Congress, and you know, acting as our whip and leading the party. And just thanks again for the time. Hope you have a great day.
Well, you too, Will. Thank you for what you do, and I look forward to seeing you next time I'm in your neighborhood.
Sounds good. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Source with Majority Whip Tom Emmer. We'll see you next time.